Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is haul. Let's take a moment and look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear haul used is to mean to pull or drag with effort or force. A second and related way you might hear haul used is to describe the action of pulling some attached trailer or load that is behind some type of vehicle. A third way the verb haul gets used is to talk about transporting something by vehicle. So, to help us understand those first three definitions, I've got a picture in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen. And I realize this picture might be very, very small. So I'm gonna point out here, if you look very, very closely, there's a tractor there. It's small, it's green, and if we look right behind it, you can see all these bales of hay, these bales of hay being pulled and they're following behind this vehicle, right? So they're being pulled along. I hope that kind of illustrates the verb and some of those meanings we've been talking about. A fourth way the verb haul gets used is to mean to propel or pull oneself with a great deal of difficulty. Okay, so I want to mention with this particular verb, when people use it, I think there is an understanding that there is either a large quantity, a heavy quantity. It's not something small and light, right? If I have a pen and I'm taking it from one place to another, I'm not going to use that verb because it doesn't take a lot of effort. It's not a difficult task. This is very light. But as you can see in the picture here, right, when we have all of these heavy bales of hay or containers, if you will, that is hard, and that's where you're going to see the verb used. Now, you should know that haul is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms hauling. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb, haul, ends in a voiced L sound. This means that our ed ending is just going to make a D sound. And I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. So the verb should sound like this: hauled, hauled. Okay. Now let's move on and talk about some phrasal verbs with haul. The first we'll discuss is to haul before. When we use this phrasal verb, we're talking about bringing someone into the presence of someone or something. An example of this might be: officers hauled the suspect before a judge as soon as they could. Here, we're talking about police officers bringing a suspect to a judge, to a court proceeding here as quickly as they could. This is an example of a simple past tense sentence. Let's take a look at another example. The second phrasal verb I have here is to haul down. This can mean that we're forcing someone to go to a particular location, and generally it's to deal or face a person of authority. An example of this: the teacher hauled the two fighting students down to the principal's office. So the principal is generally in a position to give harsher consequences, harsher punishment than a teacher, right? That is the authority here. This is another example of a simple past tense sentence. A third way, or a third phrasal verb, I should say, is to haul in. This can have a couple different meanings. One is used in many different sports, and it generally means to catch a ball or a pass. An example of this might be: He's hauled in 5 passes today. This sentence is an example of the present perfect. It might be something you hear a sportscaster, an announcer say during a game of American football. So it's just noting this person has caught 5 passes. Another way to use haul in or haul into is to mean to force or threaten to force someone to go to some particular place. An example of this: they'll haul you in if you violate the terms of your probation. Probation might occur after someone has been convicted of a crime. Maybe they have served time in jail or prison, and they're being released but sort of monitored to make sure they don't get into more serious trouble. This sentence, they'll haul you in, is an example of the simple future. Someone might be making a prediction of what they think will happen. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to haul off. This is used when someone commits a rather sudden and violent act. Many times it might not seem like there's any warning. You didn't see this coming. An example of this: he hauled off and hit his brother. This is another simple past tense sentence. So, again, we might be describing they were playing together and all of a sudden, kind of out of the blue, this happened very suddenly. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is to haul on. This can mean that you are forcefully pulling something along. An example: they hauled on the reins to stop the horses. Okay. So if you can imagine kind of reins, you might think of that sort of like the rope that is connected to horses, right? And someone really forcefully pulling or yanking on the horses to get them to stop. Another phrasal verb you might see is to haul over. This can mean to pull or drag someone or something to another place. An example of this: haul over a chair and have a seat. So here, this is an imperative. We're giving someone a command, telling them kind of pull a chair into some other area, sit down. Maybe all of the chairs are already occupied, so they're encouraging you to pull a chair from the other side of the room. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to haul up. This can have a couple different meanings. One would be to force someone or something upward or upright. So if they had been lying down, right, having them move upright. Can be similar to the verb lift. An example of this: he hauled the suitcases up the staircase. Again, remember how we talked about earlier something being really heavy, really difficult? If I'm carrying the single pen up the stairs, I'm not going to say I hauled the pen up the stairs, but you can envision or picture a really heavy suitcase that someone is using a lot of force to carry upwards. The last way you might hear haul up used is to mean to stop moving, or it's really another way to say to take a break. An example of this: let's haul up for a few minutes before we continue hiking. Right? This phrase is really saying, hey, let's stop and take a break. Now let's move on and talk about some words that are related to our verb haul. And the first word we're going to discuss today is the noun form of this word. So exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. The noun haul can be used in a few different ways. One way is to describe the quantity of something that has been stolen. An example of this: police discovered their haul of laptops and other electronics. So what is implied with this is usually a large quantity, right? If one person had stolen a single laptop, we might not use this word haul. But this sentence to me is suggesting there were many laptops and other electronics, maybe cell phones, iPads, who knows what other types of devices that were taken. A second way to use the noun haul is to refer to all the products that have been purchased by someone during a particular period of shopping. An example of this: the children received quite the Christmas haul. This is another way of saying they received a lot of presents. Um, I know I've actually heard this word used a few times over the last week, and with people describing kind of a large quantity of gifts, or describing their shopping trip to buy a number of gifts. A third way you might hear the noun haul used is very specific to fishing, and that's to describe the number of fish that have been caught during a single time out. An example of this might be the question, "What was your haul from the lake today?" This is similar to asking, "How many fish did you catch today?" The last way you might hear the noun haul used is to refer to a number of points, medals, or titles that's been won by either an individual or a team. In again, more specific to sports, and over a period of time. An example of this might be Michael Phelps' 28 medal haul remains a record for Olympic swimming. So this is describing, right, how many Olympic medals, gold, silver, bronze, this particular athlete has won while competing in the Olympics. One more related word for today, and that's the noun hauler. That suffix er is generally telling us a person or thing whose, and we can look back at our verb. So the first way we're going to use this noun is to describe a person or a company that is responsible for transporting goods by road. An example of this might be private haulers will dispose of the waste. So this could be any number of things that are not wanted, but they are being collected, maybe put inside a truck, and then being transported to a particular place where that waste will be disposed of. Now, a second way the noun hauler gets used is specifically to refer to different types of trucks or vehicles that are used for transporting things. An example of this: the company owns 100 haulers. This is going to be, again, very specific to really large vehicles that can transport other things. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.